la, 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 la,
No.
Here we go.
Someone's watching this yelling at the screen right now. I hope someone's watching this.
Get a haircut and do something about that background.
Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe we're crazy.
No. Pick up your copy of Hamlet if you have
Hamlet.
one.
Which one is that? Is that the one where it's Henry VIII?
Good enough. Yeah, close enough.
Okay, Henry VIII. Fantastic.
Close enough. Yes.
This is the title, right? The Beatles, A to Z. That's pretty. It's British.
That'll do it.
I'm in the same country. Let's see.
I bet they mentioned Shakespeare in there.
They absolutely did. Yes.
That's funny.
So okay, well, we where do we begin?
I think we begin at we are going to take Hamlet scene by scene. Each kind of episode that we're going to do here is going to go scene by scene, but we should say from the top that even Shakespeare, at least in the folio, Shakespeare didn't break it up into scenes. Scenes are something that was added by modern editors. Even the acts, I think Shakespeare only gives Hamlet the first two acts, and after that it all runs together. And within those first two acts, I think there's only two scenes, and then everything else runs together. So breaking up by scenes is kind of based on change of location or other characters kind of entering and exiting. It's where kind of modern texts have put scenes. So we're going to go scene by scene. And I think we're going to balance between looking at it brand new, kind of explaining kind of what is happening, who the characters are, having kind of new eyes and new ears on it. But at the same time, we can't ignore what we already know. So some things are going to foreshadow or make sense because we know where things are going. And I just thought it's a good excuse for us to take our time looking at this play, right? We're not in a rehearsal where we have to hurry, or we have an opening night over our heads, and we can take it. And I thought, I don't know, Paul, if we do, on the conservative side, if we do 2 of these a month, like every couple of weeks, or 2 or 3 a month or whatever, this takes us between 8 and 10 months to go through the play, which is pretty great excuse to spend that much time really looking at this play. And also what I've learned is as I get older and I change and my life experience change, the play says different things to me. So it's about time for me. I just turned 43 to look at this play again and see if I see new in it or see something I didn't see before. Yeah. Do I still like this play?
Yes.
Is this play good?
It might not be.
Yeah, I just thought it would be fun to take a look and ask all those questions. And I'm not expecting to have any answers as usual. Yeah.
Well, I found interesting in exploring the play in this manner. And what I love about it as well is that when you look at the scene in and of itself, hashtag that movie,
Very good.
with sort of as a complete work, not as just a portion of something bigger, your perspective changes dramatically. Pun
that's
intended,
interesting.
because you're like, okay, we have a beginning, we have a middle, we have an end, the end of this particular story. And there's a lot that happens in that context. And of course, have we been discussing just the entire Act 1 in its entirety, or the entire play, it would be kind of, no matter how much we took our time, it would be rushed over. But looking at it in this context, now again, as you mentioned, they were broken up this way in past Shakespeare's time. Still, whoever did break it up this way back in the day, it certainly makes sense considering what happens after Act 1, Scene 1. It's a completely different scene.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I think it makes sense. Yeah, but
so it slows it down to a point where your microscopic lens, if you want to call it that, when you're trying to really kind of dive into Shakespeare, is magnified 20-fold. Because And the questions, I found the questions and things I've noticed also are exacerbated as well. I don't know if you did that as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you kind of can start. I feel like the puzzle pieces become a little bit larger and easier to see when, like this last week, all I was doing was looking at scene one and just reading. I like to read a lot of analysis of the play and stuff, and I was only looking for information on scene one. It can be overwhelming when you're trying to take in the entirety of what Harold Bloom has to say about the play.
Mm.
And you can lose it. So I don't know. This is just kind of an excuse for me to dive back into the play and to take my time with it. Yeah, and I'm kind of interested to see kind of where we go. So what I have in front of me now, besides my lime spindrift and a little bit of popcorn, is I'm looking at the Arden edition. I'm also looking at this little Signet edition, which I used to love because it fits in my back pocket. I love this little paperback. It's really easy to carry around with you. I love that edition.
Can I see it?
I'm also, oh yeah, this little guy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because it just fits. I used to carry one of these around with me all the time, and pages falling out. I don't know. I've made a bunch of notes in there. I kind of like that one. It's not as in depth as the Arden or maybe the Oxford, whatever. I also have here, which is a little difficult to read, but I have the parallel text version. It's quarto 1, quarto 2 in the folio, all on the same page together.
Oh.
So I can kind of see where stuff was cut out. But I also have my favorite edition, which you probably know, the Neil Freeman first folio edition. So this is probably my favorite edition here. I do have a copy of the bad quarto as well. I was reading somewhere, and I'll have to double check this, the bad quarto wasn't discovered until like 200 years later, to like the 1800s. And I don't know why they call it quarto 1 if it was discovered. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. And then just some notes. I've got some notes here that I've made, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. And you, I think, are working from the Folger, right?
I'm working from, I had a Signet edition as well, but I guess I feel loyal to the Folger edition.
I like that one.
Because that's one you gave us when, you taught the wonderful Shakespeare class, and what we used when we performed our workshop version of Hamlet. And particularly this, I was thinking, I've been reading a lot of Shakespeare online, but I wanted a hard copy version where I could underline passages that kind of struck me. So that's what I've used. And I figured we'd be discussing, the differences if they come up, if in your studies of the first folio and the quartos or what have you. But I know the Folgers, they kind of combine a bit of.
Yeah, and that'll be kind of part of what we talk about. Like and I think also for me, I can't help, one last thing, I guess, before we start here, I can't help but look at the play through the eyes of performing the play rather than through the eyes of kind of academia, right? Through study and analysis, which I think are two very different things.
They are. No, I agree.
I like Harold Bloom, but a lot of the stuff he points out are useless to the actor. Right. I can't use them. So whenever I'm looking at the play, I always think of things on what is informative for me playing the role, or the person playing Claudius or Laertes, what is helpful to them, and how do we connect these dots to make it a full person rather than just analyzing why certain things were written. Yeah.
Right. Right. The stuff that interests me has to do with why it is written and why does someone say it, as opposed to historical context and slang from the 17th century or what have you, or the 16th
Great.
century.
Right. I agree.
So we're at cross purposes. We might as well end this discussion right now. Yes.
Okay, so listen, this is our first episode here. Let's just kind of freestyle this thing.
Okay. Kicking it over.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm gonna turn it around here. Here we go. Okay, starting from the top here. And and like, speaking of the historical stuff that you talked about, which is interesting, which we won't really get into too much, but in the day, plot lines and characters and ideas were stolen from writers. You look at kids the Spanish tragedy, and there are so many similarities in that play. This one, you look at Bell Forest and Saxo Grammatica and all that stuff, Amleth, Amleth, you take the H and put it on the front and you get Hamlet. It's the same story. So all these things were kind of picked up, stolen, if you will, borrowed, and then Shakespeare just wrote it better, basically, right? So these ideas, you can read about all that stuff. Again, as an actor playing this play, that stuff doesn't interest me all that much. Like, where did he get the idea of Hamlet? Sure, you can read about it, but I'm more interested in what happens in this play.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just thought I needed to say that at the top. And the title of this play changed throughout. It used to be The Historical Tragedy of Hamlet, which made it a history play, and then it changed to The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. So it's had a few changes. But I do like to kind of balance between the modern productions that I've been in and I've seen with imagine seeing this play for the very first time, if that's a possibility. All right, Paul. So where does the play start?
Well, it's interesting. It starts, if you really look into even if you look at a glance at the text, it's something I never realized. It starts with a watch where the watchmen don't know why they're there.
Yeah.
They don't know why they're there. It's like,
right.
Like, we're on guard about something. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And so not only do they don't know what they're doing there. The first line, and this is something you pointed out years ago that, still strikes me today, is that first line from, Bernardo, the glasses, who's there? So they don't know where they are. They don't know what they're doing there. They just know where they are. They don't know what they're doing there. And now it's who's there, who's approaching, what's happening. Now, I think it was you who pointed out, who's there is that great existential question,
sure.
And it's not a random, question put as a first line in Hamlet.
Right.
So you've got people who are lost and you have questions of identity, who's there, and then that kind of goes through the whole play,
For sure.
Existence, to be or not to be.
And who are you really? Who are you pretending to be, and who are you really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they pretend to be mad, etc. Well, that's later on, of course. But nonetheless, so it begins in a state of unrest and confusion.
Yeah, it almost feels like too. We hear about, what is it called? The inciting incident. There's always an inciting incident in a story or a screenplay or a play. There's kind of 3 inciting incidents if you were to break it down. 2 of them happen before the play even starts, which I would say the inciting incidents would be that the king is murdered, right?
What?
If this was a modern screenplay, they would show that, right? They would take all this time, they would build all it. And then the other one, spoiler alert, is that a ghost that looks like the king who just died has shown up twice on the battlements. We don't get to see that either. We only see the 3rd time. So we're hopping on a train that's already running. Man, I just love that. I think it's great.
Well, on top of that, you have, something that's already happened. The king has been murdered and his brother married the queen.
That's right. That's already happened.
Yeah. So it's like, and when I was thinking the other day, comparatively speaking to other Shakespearean plays, I'm trying to think, granted, they all kind of have that revved up beginning. It never starts with any real normalcy. There's always a history to it.
Right. And he trusts the audience will catch up to that history throughout the play. He doesn't have to explain that history right at the top. He doesn't have to show that. Like, throughout the play, if you just listen, you'll catch on to what the history is.
Yes.
And I love that. And I got to say, in modern plays, I think the modern plays you and I like, the writers that you and I like, do that. The ones we don't like, try to explain everything to us, like in a very slow kind of manner. So we're on the battlements, right? The outside edge of kind of the castle of Elsinore in Denmark. And as you said, we start with Bernardo and Francisco. Francisco being, again, a tidbit of information. Francisco probably, other than the messenger in Act 4, Francisco is probably the only character that the actor playing Hamlet could also play as well.
Yeah.
Because in this play, most actors are going to play more than one role. And I used to think, and people say this all the time, oh, the wrong person says who's there, right? So Francisco is already there. Bernardo is walking up to take his place, right, as the guard at midnight. And Bernardo says who's there, and it thinks, oh, that's odd, because Bernardo should be expecting Francisco to be there, so why does he say who's there? But if you read the first stage direction, which there aren't many stage directions in Shakespeare, it says, enter Bernardo and Francisco. In modern plays, because we can bring the lights down, they usually sneak Francisco on, open, Bernardo walks on, and they have the scene. But when Shakespeare's doing it out in the open air without kind of electrical lights, you've got to imagine two actors walking on at the same time. And that would make sense. Now we get the feeling that the guard is not just standing in one place. He's got to guard, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile. He's got to walk back and forth. So you got this guy walking back and forth, and Bernardo not knowing where to find. So two actors walking onto a stage, and boom, it frightens them both, and he says, who's there? That makes more sense to me. Two actors walking on rather than one already being there and one walking on saying who's there.
And I don't know if this is anything, but it's a foreshadow of a foreshadow, because it's like frightened like what? Like a ghost. The ghost hasn't shown up yet. Spoiler. So
I think, well, and it puts everybody on edge immediately. We're opening, because they've well, Bernardo has seen the ghost twice. Francisco never sees the ghost, but they all know, whoever guards this section or whatever knows it's out there. So it puts everybody on edge immediately. So if we look down, he says, long live the king, which could be kind of code word, or kind of what they say to kind of know that they are friends to this crown and liegemen to the Dane. Francisco says, Bernardo, ? It's like, yeah, Francisco, of course, you probably should have known Bernardo was coming. So he says, Francisco says, you come most carefully upon your hour, right? Which means this is your time to relieve my watch. Bernardo says, 'tis now struck 12. I like the idea of this play starting with 12 strikes of the clock or something that you're hearing. But so far we get the idea that Francisco is on guard. Bernardo is coming up at midnight to take his place, right?
Yes.
I don't know why he has to say 'tis now struck 12. I mean, you come most carefully upon your hour is kind of saying you're here at midnight. And Bernardo says, yeah, it's midnight. Basically is what he's saying. But time in this play, I'll point out now, two things. Time in this first scene is very interesting, which I think is something that you can use in a production. But two, trying to follow time in this play, I think will just run you mad.
Yes.
Because it's not consistent. And I don't think Shakespeare cared much. When you start looking at travel times between France and Denmark and how long the letter would take to get to Laertes to tell him that his father has died, then he would get on a horse and carriage and make his way to Denmark. Like, I think you've missed the point, which I've done that. I've gone down that road and realized this isn't what I should be looking at all.
I think I was glancing it over again before we started, and I have found the key when going through Shakespeare, any of Shakespeare's plays, is acceptance. Of accepting what is in the text, because you can drive yourself crazy it's good to ask questions, but it's not good to let the questions rule everything, in terms of time, in terms of, the answer is in the text. And if you're still not finding the answer in the text, then you're not looking hard enough. You need to explore it deeper. And so that's what I found when I found trouble spots. As long as I read through it, it eventually, just like the beginning of the play, the treadmill that you need to catch up on, you catch up to it.
Right. That's good.
The sense is you may not find sense in one word or one line, but it will make sense as a whole.
Right. Yeah. And I think that makes I think that also pertains to those kind of geological kind of things you can get yourself kind of trapped into as well. Again, Shakespeare, I don't think cares about that. Again, I'll say this, and hearing me say this again, it's why it makes me mad when people set the play in places that we know, like 1920 Chicago Gangster. Like, the reason it drives me nuts is because these plays weren't meant to be set anywhere that we know. Where in the world do we know where people speak in rhyming couplets? So if we're able to accept that people are speaking in iambic pentameter and rhyming couplets, then we can accept that he got from France to Denmark very quickly. You know, like, I'm willing to accept that if at first you accept that it's a world that has never existed. It's another place. I mean, the politics in this play, I think, are completely wrong. We don't get hung up on that. So let's not get hung up on all the other stuff, I think, is how I feel about it.
Yeah,
You know what
I agree.
I mean? Okay, so Bernardo shows up. Francisco, "'Tis bitter
Okay.
cold, I'm sick at heart." Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting line. So Francisco says, "For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart."
Mhm.
Why does he say that?
I think he's scared. I think that there's been 2 nights ago, this ghost has walked.
Francisco
Walked in.
hasn't seen the ghost.
No, but I'm sure Bernardo and Marcellus has said, "Hey, we saw this thing. You got to let us know." Because in just a second, Bernardo's going to ask Francisco, "Did you see it? Did you see anything?" I think Francisco is, I think, goes to show how scared he is out there. I think that adds to it. That's what I get from it. And early on, if we've never seen this play before, and all this stuff, this first scene goes by very quickly. We know something's up. They're jumpy. They're jumpy, and he's sick at heart and wants to go home and wants to get the hell out of here. Something's going on, and we're not sure what yet.
Mm.
I think. What do you think?
Yeah, again, it's foreboding upon foreboding upon foreboding.
Yeah.
The play instantly begins with conflict. The conflict does not wait until 5 pages in. The conflict is there from the beginning. Who's there? Long live the king! You know, we already got a little bit of kind of pre-violence, violence happening, and we have Francisco saying, "Thank God you're here. It's freezing, and I am freaking out." You know, so I'm like,
yes.
"Whoa, we're only on page 1. What the hell?" You know,
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Which makes me sad is there was a trend for a while, and sometimes there still is, to cut this scene. And people say we cut it because all the information is repeated later. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I see what they're saying, but later it's repeated and it creates suspense because they're going to tell Hamlet all of this, so the audience knows more than Hamlet knows. And also, starting with this creepy night, scary, even if you're doing an outdoor theater and it's still light outside, you can still pull that off. Starting with a ghost scene, fantastic. Like, I hate the fact that sometimes people cut this scene. Bernardo asks, "Have you had quiet guard?" Francisco, "Not a mouse stirring." And I love it. If you look in the folio, those lines could possibly, they're opportunities. They're not rules. Could be one line. It's 11 beats. "Have you had quiet guard? Not a mouse stirring." 11 beats. Unless Francisco does not let Bernardo finish what he was saying.
Right.
Then it becomes 10 beats, which, if you just read it like that, it shows Francisco's in a hurry to get the fuck out of there, right? "Have you had quiet guard, not a mouth stirring?" He jumps right in. "I'm done here." Like, then you can make it 10 beats, and it adds to kind of, so that's, and all in the folio too, Neil Freeman does a good job kind of breaking up these lines, which creates this kind of hurried up tempo pulse in the heart, which I think is pretty great. Bernardo tells Francisco to go home, and then he says, "On your way, if you see the other 2 guys coming, tell them to hurry, because I don't want to stand here by myself either."
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. I don't want to, so tell them, if you see Marcellus already, tell them, hurry the fuck up, because I don't want to be here by myself.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The combination
So
of
then,
the fact that they've heard ghost stories and they have no idea why they're on the watch in the first place.
yes, I keep forgetting that. You're right. They don't know why they're there. That's great. I don't think we should forget that. Yeah, that's great. And then Francisco says, "I think I hear them," and they show up. So it seems to me like Francisco was on the watch by himself, but Marcellus and Bernardo do the watch together. I'm
Because,
not sure.
well, I think it was with purpose because Marcellus and Bernardo had both seen the ghost,
Right.
and they wanted to, and Marcellus knew that they wanted to bring Horatio to show him, and so
Right. I guess my question is, well, how come Francisco didn't have a partner guard? It seems like the guards walk around in twos, Marcellus, Bernardo. Why didn't Francisco have a guard partner?
um, my guess is that Marcellus normally does not have. I think they
Oh,
always work alone, but he brought an extra guy along to say, look, it's the ghost. I'm telling you.
okay. Okay. Because it says, okay, yeah, let's keep that in mind because later I think it says that Marcellus and Bernardo, have seen it twice. It makes me think that they were together both times that they saw it. But maybe it was separate. Maybe not. Maybe one saw it and a quarter mile away he saw it. I'm not sure. But does it feel to you like this is not only Marcellus's and also Bernardo's like midnight walk? They're supposed to be here at midnight, right? Is that what it feels like to you? And then they've just added Horatio to the mix. But this is their job. At midnight, they stand here.
It is at least one of them. It's their job to stand there, but also it's an appointment with Horatio to say,
Right.
it was a preconceived plan. Let's bring Horatio at this exact time, which is the witching hour, so we can see if the ghost shows up again, and he can vouch for our, and then
yes, yeah, I think so. You know what? Although, let's take a closer look because maybe that wasn't the plan. Maybe the plan was Marcellus. No, because he does say if you see them coming. Yeah, you're right. So Bernardo is expecting both of them to show up. Later on, it just seems that Marcellus says, we'll see coming up. He says, I told Horatio, he didn't believe me, so I invited him to come with us. Is what he says, but I think it was the plan all along to bring him no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay, so Horatio, Marcellus show up.
And I want to point out one thing too.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, but like many writers, Shakespeare uses his craft to have some exposition for the audience. He has maybe characters say to struck 12 to make, so he wants to make sure that he's not just delivering the poetry, but he's like, hey, we're here and this is what time it is and blah, blah, blah. So he might, do a little bit of overreach in terms of explanation for exposition's sake.
That's right. That's right. And then as an actor, our job is to make that make sense in the conversation.
Actors communicate that to the audience. Yes.
Yeah, we have to make it
confuse the audience. Yes.
Horatio, Marcellus show up. Again, Francisco, stand ho, who's there? So I think I hear them. Stand ho, who's there? Friends to this ground and liegemen to the Dane, which are Horatio, Marcellus. Francisco, give you good night. Again, Francisco just wants to get the hell out.
Yeah.
That's his thing. He hasn't seen the ghost. He's heard about it, but fuck all this. I'm out.
He's going.
He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to see it. So he said, farewell, who's relieved you? Bernardo hath my place. Give you good night. There, he said good night 3 times now.
Yes.
They greet. So Bernardo immediately asks if Horatio is there. What is that a piece of him? I've seen that done a bunch of different ways.
I love that line, and it's now. I'm going to go on a limb here and say it's very un-Horatio to speak that way.
Mm-hmm.
Given that when you consider Horatio's role in the play, bit of a Greek chorus, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of a commentator saying things as they are, pointing out things. But this is his most sort of clever, his like one attempt at being like, well, a piece of him's here because I guess he doesn't trust this, doesn't, very doubtful.
Right, or he's freezing cold again. Why am I out here at this time? Kind of thing. Right. Yeah, no, you're right. And maybe it's a tiny bit to show the transition of Horatio to go from witty, white, kind of like don't want to be here kind of guy. And then he sees the ghost, and all of a sudden he's a different Horatio.
Yeah, maybe it changed. I mean, which I love the idea that it maybe in this one line, it reveals who Horatio was before the play began, before he sees the ghost of his best friend's father,
Right.
and freaks out. He's like, "Oh my God, I don't know who I am." So I think, I love, and yes, I didn't consider before the cold in that factor, a piece of him. It could mean a lot of things.
Yeah, sure. But he's here slightly against his will. He's here like he's like, fine, I'll come because you keep bugging me. So Bernardo welcomes them. And this line, what has this thing appeared again tonight? It's actually Bernardo's line. Modern editors give it to Horatio, and I kind of agree with that. I like it. I believe in the folio. Please break me off again. Hold on, give me just a second. Yes. It's Marcellus. Marcellus, what has this thing appeared again tonight? That's Marcellus's line. Which it totally can work, because Marcellus would want to know immediately, although Marcellus knows when it shows up. It showed up the same time twice, and it's not quite time yet for it to show up. And I also like the fact that Horatio referred to it as a thing. Like, that's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of throwing it off. He's kind of like not buying into it. So I like that it's Horatio's line.
Is it Marcellus's line in the quarto as well?
Oh yeah, let me look. Let's see. Quarto Marcellus. There's Horatio there. What has this thing? Okay, so in the folio, it is Marcellus's line. In the quarto, the quarto 2, what has this thing appeared again tonight? It's Horatio's line. Yeah.
Oh.
So I like that. I tend to go with the folio more often, but I like that Horatio would be like, what? Why are you guys so scared? Did this thing show up? Like, it's another kind of disbelief.
Well, in terms of clarity, yes, it seems to make the most sense.
Yeah.
Because then it also gives him that attitude, sort of a doubting guy, which he is not so much in the rest of the play.
Right. Yeah, he is a very pragmatic guy. For instance, at the end of the play within the play, when we will get there sometime in June, I love that Hamlet says, "Did you see? Did you see?" And he says, "I very well did observe." Like, I love that Horatio, which gives the actor playing Horatio, which is what I love about Shakespeare. It's room for your interpretation. People say, what is Hamlet about? Hamlet is about the people who are playing the roles. They'll tell you what it's about. They will tell you. Is Hamlet mad? It depends on who's playing the role. And isn't that fantastic? That's fantastic, right? Paul's Hamlet may be mad and someone else's Hamlet may not be. That's why we can see it multiple times. The answers lie in the actors who are playing the roles.
Yeah. Right. As you have mentioned often, is that this is a play that is meant to be played, not read. And but nonetheless, if one wants to read it, no one's going to.
Sure. But no, right. So Horatio doesn't quite. Horatio's like, I'm not buying this. It's cold. You drug me out here. Marcellus explains. Horatio thinks we're full of shit. Touching this dreaded sight twice seen of us. So now we know. So now we've seen
what happened that first time. The first time I saw him, what was the discussion? I mean, in terms of moments before for the actor, first time you see the ghost, is it disbelief? Is it shock? Is it speechlessness? And then the second time, it's like, wait a minute, now we've seen this 2 times.
Yeah.
What the hell's happening here? Let's get
I think that's great.
on this. He's a learned guy. He would figure it out.
I think you see it once and you convince yourself that you didn't see it.
Yeah.
And then you see it again and you go, and we find out later that the guards didn't try and speak to it. But they want Horatio to speak to it. Also start to take notice of all the things they call the ghost. Ends up being a thing, dreaded sight, apparition, illusion, so many different names, which is, I think that's fantastic. We're not supposed to know exactly what it is. You know, if everyone called it a ghost from the very beginning, and throughout, this happens throughout the play. Hamlet says it may be the devil later on. Like we're continually wondering what this thing is. Great. Therefore, I entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it. Which is, again, what you said, it's exposition. I expect Bernardo to go, yeah, that was the plan. You didn't have to tell me that. That was the plan.
Yeah. And then Horatio, Horatio, very plain spoken, consistently plain spoken throughout the play, speaks his mind. Tush will not appear. Like, again, he's a very different Horatio than the rest of the play. He's like, I'm the clever guy. Yeah, you guys are nuts. Fuck this play.
That's so true.
Yes, it's such a different contrast, because when you think about who he becomes, it's a very different person. And
yeah.
It really gives, I think, for the actor playing Horatio, great insights into, and we should see that, or at least it gives an opportunity for change, an opportunity for a transformation. I suppose.
Yes. I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that before. Yeah, you're right. He's very much in this, not like the Horatio that we're used to seeing. Okay, and here, so Bernardo's like, sit down a while, which I've noticed, I think they end up saying sit down 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Which is funny, and no one sits. I'm gonna sit down a while, let us once again. So in other words, we're gonna tell you the story again, and Horatio says, oh, let us hear from Bernardo. Like, in other words, I've heard it from Marcellus. Let us hear from Bernardo. And then Bernardo begins to tell the story. Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole had made his course to loom that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating one. A couple of interesting things. So is he saying exactly this moment, exactly last night and the night before is when it happened? Like when that star was right there, this is when it happened, I think. And then he says the bell beating 1. So is he saying now all of a sudden it's 1 a.m.? It went from midnight to 1 a.m. in about 32 lines.
Yes, that's a good question. Now, granted, it's an interrupted line. So was he going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? It's possible.
That's good. I think you're right. And I think later on we get a clue to that, because when they explain it to Hamlet, he says, I'll meet you twixt 11 and 12. And he says, has the clock struck 12? It has struck. I didn't hear it. Like, I feel like it's around midnight. Yeah, I'm not sure when the time is. I think the point is it happens the same every night. And if it is at midnight, you're right, it's an interrupted line. That could make sense. But if it is at 1, all of a sudden we've got these weird time jump. We have another time jump at the end of another 120 lines later. It jumps about 6 hours, which is really interesting. So again, yes. I don't know.
It sets it up that, I think perhaps unconsciously, Shakespeare created a story where time is fluid and not necessarily linear. Well, it's linear, but linear not the way you and I think of it.
Yes.
And he basically said, I'm going to take this traditional story and I'm going to create my own world with my own rules, or no rules at all, with letting the heart of the story and the heart of each character, let that lead the tale, as opposed to rules of geography and time and space or what have you. Again, play begins with who's there. Right now, they're still in the who's there. There's a ghost. What is it? I don't know. Who is it? I don't know. The devil? It's my grandmother? I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You know what, Paul? I think what you said is right on the nose, and I think it's exactly what we need to remember when doing Shakespeare. These stories are led by characters and their emotion and their intent and their heart. It's not led by perfect matter of time. Can you imagine if, that 6-hour time jump that I was just talking about, if Shakespeare tried to write something to make us think 6 hours had passed by, they're sleeping, and it would just kill that kind of heartbeat. It would kill
Right.
what these characters are doing, their fear, their love, all that stuff. So he said, forget it. We're just going to jump to there, and now we're going to keep moving. And I love that.
And it's so consistent too, because remember, in the Shakespearean world of no rules in terms of time and space, and it's also a world where there's no subtext. Everybody speaks their mind. You know, I hate you. Here's why I hate you in about 20,000 lines. You know,
It's true. It's true.
there's no,
Yeah.
you know, it's everyone speaking their mind. It's an idealistic world in a sense,
Uh-huh.
but it's otherworldly any way you look at it in every Shakespeare play.
Yeah, and somehow being otherworldly gets us closer to the emotion of kind of who we are and the
Yes.
definition of who we are as people. Amazing.
I know.
Yeah, amazing.
Beautiful.
Okay, so here we go. So I'm in my Arden, I'm about 43 lines in or so. I know it varies depending, but are you probably right around 45 lines in or something in the folder there probably?
Correct. About 45.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. Only been 45 lines in the play. Everybody's scared shitless. One guy doesn't believe, and a damn ghost shows up that looks like the king that just died. I mean, come on. Show me another play that's not written by Shakespeare that does that.
No, I know. And also, I would even argue what other play of Shakespeare does that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Sure, there must be something. Someone's watching this yelling at the screen right now. I hope someone's watching this.
I know. I hope
they're
they're
gonna
get a haircut and do something about that background, because they're right.
They're gonna leave it in the comments. But yes, exactly. It's my favorite example of the train running and hopping right on. Again, makes me sad if people cut this scene. Okay. Peace break thee off. Look where it comes. In the same figure like the king that's dead. Thou art a scholar, speak to it, Horatio. Horatio says nothing. Looks not like the king. Marcus Horatio.
Stop for a second. I love it's not that he says, peace break thee off. Look where it comes again. It's that again that I love, because also you have in the same figure like the king that's dead. So you have again, dead. You have a little bit of a rhyme going on there, but there's something about the again that makes that line beautiful. I think if he said look where it comes, it's kind of lies flat. It's the again in addition to the meter that I think makes that gives drama to that line.
I think you're right. I think we also know that a lot of times Shakespeare puts the most important thing at the end of the line.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's great, because you're right. You've seen it 2 nights in a row, and it's like what we said earlier. You see it once, maybe you convince yourself you didn't. You see it a second time, now you got to deal with it. You see it a third time, holy shit, I don't care what Horatio says. We're not making this up. It's again. Here it is again.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's real. Look where it comes again. I'm right. I am right. You're now not. You know, it just You might as well say in your face, Horatio.
Yes, which I think is in the bad quarter. Okay.
And you got a little bit of exactly. You got a bit of exposition in the same figure like the king that's dead, like just to let the audience know.
Yep.
It's not just the ghost, it's the ghost that's exactly like the late King Hamlet. Same figure.
Right. Great. Yeah, you're right. And again, the king that's dead, that's a whole nother story that we're watching going, how'd that guy die? Why is that guy dead? Like, it's great. We're so much sitting in these questions 45 lines in.
Because this is the first time it's ever mentioned that there was a king that's dead.
Yeah, another way. Yeah.
First time is this watching it, they're like, what's happening? There's a dead king? What? And a ghost?
Right. Minutes of a period. Yeah, 4 to 5. Yep. Okay, so then Horatio speaks up. What are thou that usurp this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form, meaning he's showing up in his armor. He's looking like he's ready for battle, in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march. By heaven, I charge thee, speak. And it immediately turns away.
Now, of course, it may be obvious to some, but it is worth pointing out that, this is, I think, not the first time in the play, but I love that, Shakespeare refers to the past King Hamlet as not always the late King Hamlet, but just as Denmark. Like he is Denmark. And so it takes, and yes, there could be, and there probably is a double meaning to this. Because Denmark is not the same Denmark once that king been murdered. It's a whole different Denmark. I don't know why I'm talking about
which was the original title of the play. A whole different Denmark.
A whole different Denmark. King Norway is referred to as Norway. It's an interesting why he does that. It could be of the time or because of the opportunity of double meaning. I'm not so sure.
And the fact that they still Majesty of buried Denmark, like they still refer to him as, they're not referring to Claudius as Denmark. They're referring to this guy as Denmark.
Yeah. And buried Denmark, right? So it's like, we're talking about the state, we're talking about the country, we're talking about of course, the late King Hamlet himself. So yes, but then, right, he speaks plainly, did sometimes march by heaven, I charge thee, and then comes my favorite line. It is offended.
he goes, it's like me saying to you, Paul, go talk to that girl. Go talk to that girl. And you go, and I go, oh, she didn't like that at all, Paul. Why did you do that?
I wonder. And there's a part of me that says it had to be written with humor, but maybe not. Because the word offense and offended probably has a different value to it in the the 16th, 17th century. But I love it, and it's great for the actor. Great opportunity. Yes. At least in the rehearsals, like give it a shot. Like where are we in there? Like try that. Yeah. So the ghost immediately starts turning away, and Horatio just wants it to speak. I love it. He says, "I charge you to speak." Like yes.
And then the ghost says, "You're not the boss of me."
Who is this Horatio? This is not the same Horatio. This guy is making snide comments and being flippant and taking command. I charge thee. Who is this man? This is a different Horatio.
That's a great point. That's a great, and it's funny that you and I say that. I sent you a text before we did all this, and I said, "Listen, I'm not going to be able to ignore what I already know about this play."
Right.
And that's you and me knowing where this character goes.
Yes.
Looking at this play again, going, "Who is this guy?
Who is this man?" Appears out of nowhere. It's all like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm just a piece of me's here. But I'm part of this play. I don't care about stuff." And it's like, "I charge thee." And then it's like, "Oh my God, I got to tell Hamlet." Okay. And then the rest of the play, he never changes.
Yeah, now it's like I question everything in my entire life.
Yes, it's. I think Hamlet's really the story about Horatio. It's his story. It should have been called Horatio. He's got the last line, some of the best lines in it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's great. That's great. So he's charging this thing to speak. Marcellus, exit ghost, right? Those little stage directions, which we don't get much of them.
I love that.
Gone.
By the way, excuse me, says, "'Tis gone," and will not answer. Like, what? Who are you to say that? It's, I guess because
done.
This is what he did the previous two nights. But
Sorry, speaking of the previous two nights, do you think they only saw it once? As we know, coming up, they're about to see it again. Do you think they only saw it once, those previous two nights? So at this point, Marcellus thinks, that's it. That's the show. The show's over and we blew it. He doesn't know that it comes back again is what's about to happen. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think they saw it once.
Once a night, right?
And then maybe, this is out of reach, but maybe the ghostie's like, "Hey, Horatio, this guy knows something, and he's got a link to Hamlet. I'm going to stick around a little bit. Maybe, we can
do another lap."
What's that?
Yeah. Do another lap.
Because these, Marcellus and Barbardo, fuck Francisco, these guys got nothing to say. They're not learned men. They're not going to get it at all. I'm hoping they can lead me to the guy who gets it, and Horatio could be that guy.
Great. I think that makes sense. And it kind of elevates another level. It's not just another night, right? The ghost coming back. Because the way they behave here, it's not, Marcellus and Bernardo never say, "Give it a minute, he'll come back." They never say that.
No. Right. About, this is pretty much it. And we're right, you're wrong. And that's, now we can go home.
So now we start to see our Horatio transformation, which
Yes.
is
Which
now
is
delight.
now.
This is so delightful that I've never even really looked at it. This is
Yes.
really great.
This is the heart of the play right here. A bare like 63 lines in, or 64 lines in, we get the story of the entire play.
That's right. Not something more than fantasy. So he says, before my God, I might not disbelieve without the sensible and true avouch of mine. You might not believe. You didn't believe it. You
Yes.
absolutely did not believe it.
Yes.
Is it not like the king? Shakespeare's good at hammering those plot points.
Yes.
As thou art to thyself. Big pause, big
Always
beat if
about
it's
me,
in the.
very selfish and self-centered, as not to thyself. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's not about you, big guy. Such was thy very armor he had on. He, the ambitious
Yeah.
Norway, calls Norway combated. So frowned he
Uh-huh.
once when, in an angry parley, he smote the sled Polex on the ice. Tis strange. I love that tis strange line. And so he doubles down on, yep, this is definitely the ghost of the king. He says it, he details it once, but not twice, and in a state of perennial shock, which he never gets out of. And it's like it's strange, like life changing, never the same.
Yeah, so Horatio adds, not only is he in a warlike, so not only is he dressed in armor, but that's the specific armor he wore when 30 years ago he defeated the king of Norway.
Yeah.
That's what we're learning here. I mean, we don't learn 30 years ago, we learn that later, but he's saying not only that, but that's not the clothes he died in, right? It's not like he's showing up in the clothes he was buried in. He's showing up what he wore 30 years ago defeating Norway.
Somehow Horatio knows.
Well, this is going to be.
How does he remember? He wasn't there.
Well, this is going to be I was wondering when to bring this up because this is my big epiphany looking at this again. So I've never really thought about where Horatio is from. Where was he born? Where did he grow up? I should have, but I never have. And reading this again, he must be a Dane. And he says at the end, I'm more an antique Roman than a Dane. And a little bit when he's going to talk about the history of the Danish, he says, our history. And then that also solves the problem for me of, I always wondered if he was just, a lot of people say he's just Hamlet's school buddy that he met at university, blah, blah, blah. If that's the truth, then how did the guards know where to find him? How did the guards even know him? It must be that he grew up there, that he is Danish. Also, it solves the problem for me too, is when Hamlet goes to England, why is Horatio still hanging out in the castle? Why do people kind of lean on him as the guy keeping everything together? Like, why is he always around? Because people must know him and trust him as a Dane. So if that's the case, did Hamlet and Horatio know each other before they went off to Wittenberg? It feels like they did if the guards know Horatio,
Now,
which
question:
I've never thought of that before.
Is Wittenberg in England? The answer is yes.
It's in Germany.
Oh, it's in Germany. So the answer is
Yes.
no. So, right. I mean, I guess to bolster your argument is that obviously Horatio is not German.
Right.
That would be an interesting take on things. So it obviously makes sense that he did not just meet him in college in Germany.
Right.
And that, and you could maybe do a I don't know, stretch it a bit and say, well, he did meet him in college, but then Horatio hung out in Denmark a lot, so they just kind of knew him. I'm like, okay, that maybe, but that's not really that interesting and not really fun.
Yeah, and like, right. And like when, so it just feels like, the big question for me I've always had is, how did the guards know where to find Horatio, and how did they know that he was this philosopher's mind that would know what to do? How did they know him that well? Because we think, look, Hamlet doesn't know that Horatio's there. So it's not like Hamlet went around introducing him to everybody. This is my buddy Horatio. He's super smart. If you ever see a ghost, he's the guy to go to. Like, Hamlet doesn't even know Horatio's there, and Hamlet's been distracted with the death and the wedding. So how do the guards know Horatio? The only thing I can come up with is that he was, before they went to school, him and Hamlet hung out together, and Horatio is a familiar face around Elsinore.
Also, it begs question. I mean, if we really want to look into it, how do the guards even know Horatio's around? Hamlet doesn't know, you know. So so
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, Hamlet just like I will take no messengers. Like he just refused to be bothered. I mean, right? But again, as per discussion in terms of place and time and logic, this is not a play with rules. It's a play of acceptance. It's a play of saying, this is the text. Let the text guide you, and not your own personal sense of logic or non-personal scientific sense of logic and time and place.
Yes,
let the text.
That's right. So I it's so funny. Every single time I bring something up like that, or I think about time and this and what day, I have about a 5 to 10 minute discussion, and then I end up on that exact point of like, does it really affect the heart and the guts of this? It doesn't. It doesn't.
No.
Now, as an actor putting the shoes on, you want to connect those dots, but you can connect those dots in any way you want, as long as you're still committed to the heart and the guts of the character and the story and the play. And you know what? The audience isn't going to know how you connected those dots. I guarantee you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Marcel continues, thus twice before, and jump at this dead hour. I love that. Dead hour.
I know, me too. You know, I've always said, like, lean into the stuff that's either lean into the ambiguous and lean into the odd. I feel like the word jump to me seems odd and kind of jumps off the page. And so and jump at this dead hour seems like such a great phrase that I think we should start using again somehow. Like, I don't know, like it's like, maybe it's like late at night and we should, but I think I've never really seen that line before. And I would dive into jump at this dead hour. Yeah. So cool.
And jump goes with ghosts. It goes with a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With martial stalk hath he gone by our watch. Again, reinforcing that he's in his armor. Jump, by the way, in my version, it marks jump as a Van Halen song from 1983. Interesting.
Yes.
Did not know that.
Shakespeare way ahead of his time.
Yes.
Way ahead of his time. So again, Horatio says, I'm not quite sure exactly what it means, but my general opinion of it is that this bodes some strange eruption to our state. So he's putting the pieces together. And so when he says that, Marcella says, speaking of our state, anyone here know what the hell we're all doing here? Yeah. Basically that speech.
So he's basically saying, but by the way, speaking of ghosts, and what the hell? Why are we here? But I love also in Horatio's line, you got a lot of, possibilities in terms of rhymes. In what particular thought to know, I know not, but in the gross and scope of my opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state. So it's got a nice the poetic quality to it that's a little more upfront.
Yes.
For Horatio.
Right. And this is starting to sound like the Horatio we know. Very diplomatic, saying, look, particularly, I don't know, but what are my suspicions? How do I feel about it? This is what I think. That's very the Horatio we know.
And again, this first scene reinforces the foreboding. This bodes some strange eruption to our state. I mean, it's as if the entire first scene is like something is going to happen and something is happening at the same time. Like something is going to happen, but something is happening right now.
Right. If you think this is weird, hang out.
That's right. That's right. That's another original title of Hamlet. I believe that was the first, which he decided to word.
So basically, Marcella says, speaking of our state, we're building new ships, we're bringing in new cannons, we're standing on guard. Does anybody here know why we do this? Horatio, again, kind of maybe supporting my argument that he is Danish, says, yeah, I'm very aware because I'm Danish and I know why this is happening.
Right, he's a guy in the know. He's got the inside track. He's in with the king and queen. He's got, I don't know, his spies. Who the hell knows?
That's right. Unless you put a question mark at the end of every one of Horatio's lines, as if the knowledge is just coming to him in the moment. Like he has no idea. Hey, can you mind reading the Horatio speech there?
That can I. at least the whisper goes so, our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us, was, as you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by a most emulate pride, dared to the combat in which our valiant Hamlets, so now the king is Hamlets. He went from a past king to Denmark, now he's Hamlets.
That's great. And that's a big drop, right? So if you're coming to see a play and you know it's called Hamlet, I mean, maybe you saw and it said Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, but a lot of people back then couldn't read anyways. Now you're saying, oh, the play is named after a guy who died before the play started. And then later on you find out, oh, his son's, that's okay. It's about him now. But this is the first time we hear the word Hamlet.
Yes. So, and it's also interesting that we know, so then he distinguishes Norway from Fortinbras of Norway. They're pricked on. So again, he likes to call characters by different names. Therefore, they're to pricked on by most eminent pride, dare to the combat in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him. Which I have in parentheses, which mean it was what? It was in the first, not in the first folio, in the first quarto, or?
No, let me see what I think they're just trying to tell us it's an aside. It's a modern, I think it's in both. You know what? They're too pricked by, in the folio, it's in parentheses.
Oh, okay.
So is they're too pricked on by a most emulate pride. So it's very helpful from Shakespeare letting us know where those kind of asides are. That's nice.
Huh. For so the side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit with his life all those his lands, which he stood seized of to the conqueror. Seems pretty plain. Against the which a moiety competence was gauged, or is it, am I pronouncing it as, it's not two syllables, is it? Or is it?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm gonna have to listen to one of the recordings and see what they do, but I'm not sure.
I mean, our modern English would say gauge, but it could be gadget. Against the which a moiety competence was gauged by our king, which had returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras, had he been vanquisher, as by the same comarts and carriage of the article design his fell to Hamlet. Okay, makes sense? Now, sir, young Fortinbras, of unimproved metal, hot and full, hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of lawless resolutes for food and diet to some enterprise that hath a stomach in't, which is no other, as it doth will appear unto our state, but to recover of us by strong hand in terms compulsory those foresaid lands, so by his father lost. And this, I take it, is the main motive of our preparations, the source of this our watch, and the chief head of this post-haste and rummage in the land. Wow, you cannot be more clear as day as that.
Did you just cold read that? Because that was exceptional, Paul. That was exceptional.
Thank you.
Paul, that was great.
That
was very, very good. Yeah. And listen, it's a lot of information, and you have to be skilled in relaying that to the audience. What is important? What am I saying on the side? Who am I talking about now?
Yes.
It's very clear, but as you just so well did, it was a very good cold read, that, it's all there. If you're clear, if you know exactly what you're saying, and you're clear about what you're saying, it's great information.
Yes. And it's our job as the actor is to communicate that as you taught me, with the clarity, among other things, so that the audience can be there with you. You don't want to put up a barrier in terms of, this is poetry, I'm in, some special land. No, this is, and particularly Horatio, who's playing speaking, saying, this is what happened. Now the younger guy, he's pretty pissed. He's going to try to, so it seems like not only does he know, he's got a very clear picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I think, and he, so he's given us a little bit of history of what's going on. So he knows, I guess everybody kind of knows that young Fortinbras is going around getting an army together to come back to Denmark and get those. So everyone kind of knows that. We're going to see in the next scene that Claudius does something to take care of that. So everyone kind of knows what's going on over there.
Everyone but the people on the watch. Marcellus doesn't know that, Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
It's like, what kind of army is going on in Denmark? They're just like, go watch. Like, why? I don't know. Just do it. Okay.
That's right. And so Bernardo's response after all of that is basically, Yep, I agree. I concur,
Yeah.
Horatio.
And be no but in so, but being sort of this portentous figure comes around through our what. But and then so and he's like, yeah, that also makes sense that this ghost haunting us. It all kind of fits.
No, I know. And then so in my, which is mine starts I think 111. You're probably around there. Let's see, post haste and rummage in the land. I've got that at 110.
Mine
The
is
next,
almost at like 118.
oh really?
Yep.
Huh. Wonder what all that was. Yeah, so they're going to vary. But post haste and rummage in the land in the folio is where the ghost comes back.
Oh.
So all this stuff about Julius Caesar coming up is cut in the folio, which I think is a pretty good cut unless you're trying to promote the other play that's going on at the theater at the time, which was Julius Caesar.
Which is very possible.
I think so, because he does it later on in the play within the play. He promotes Julius Caesar again, remember, with Polonius.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, historical Shakespeare, lest we forget, was a businessman and a very successful one. So he was a genius artist and a genius businessman.
Yes, and we know the play he wrote right before this one is Julius Caesar. He basically wrote him, could be. I mean, Hamlet is somewhere 1600, 1603, but Julius Caesar is the one he wrote right before it. So, so I can see why they would throw that in there, but I can also see why you would cut it. And I've never been in a production that kept that speech about the mightiest Julius fell, the grave stood tenantless, and the sheeted dead did squeak. And yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that speech in a production I was in.
Huh? I'm sorry. Quick question. I mean, interrupt. Well, I'm sorry. Continue. Then I'll ask my question. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, just that speech. I can't remember hearing it. Anyways, I do love the line though. A mote it is to trouble the mind's eye. That's so good.
Yeah. It is a most curious speech. I'm sorry. I guess my question was, so it's not in the first folio, and it's not in the quarto, I assume?
It is in the quarto. They added it. Yeah, it is in the quarto, yeah. Yeah, but not in the... Yeah, what do I have here? Another thing I love about this Neil Freeman version is at the beginning, he lists, you can see here, so to Hamlet, all the minuses and pluses are the lines that have been removed from the quarto and added back in. So that's kind of a cool little, I like that. So right there it says minus 17 lines, Horatio citing unnatural happenings prior to the fall of Julius Caesar. Yeah. It's like cutting out the story later about the young kid actors making the other acting troupe have to go on the road. That was something that was going on at the time. So later on, in 1623, when they actually printed the folio, it wasn't really topical anymore, and I guess they took it out. But again, Shakespeare apparently was always revising his plays too. If he put something in for one time period or one night even, and it wasn't the same thing, they would change it as they went. It's not like now. So that makes sense, yeah.
Of all his plays, he was constantly changing it?
From what I hear, when I listen to scholars and stuff and people talk, they were like that. I mean, apparently there's a thing called the Hamlet, which there is references to, and people think it was the first version of Hamlet, which we don't have anymore. They performed that for years and then actually wrote this version of Hamlet. So it was always kind of changing. That's why some people think the bad quarto is an early version, which I don't think it is. But yeah, there was a lot of, because they weren't for printing. You know what I mean? They didn't even think about printing these until 1623. So they weren't for printing. They were just learn the lines. Here's some new ones. Very much like the play within the play in Hamlet, where he says, hey, can you do the murder of Gonzago? And can you learn these 12 lines that I'm going to put in there? Great. That's kind of how I'm guessing, that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. It's like plays were akin to folklore,
Yes.
It was word of mouth. It was not for printing. Printing was competition. Printing would be competition, so they wouldn't even think of printing it at the time.
Right, right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Why there are arguably a couple of things in the play, couple words, lines that scholars, people think are actor added. It's not Shakespeare that an actor added it, and somehow that it stuck. So I love the mystery of it all. I certainly do. I feel like there's room for our opinion. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's that great George Bernard Shaw line that said, Hamlet is a piece of artwork in a museum that you get to look at, and then you get to add something to. I love it.
It begs the question, in terms of, in the brilliant way that Hamlet allows its shape and form to be created by the players themselves, the director and the players, and that it's right. It's what we put into it. Would you say that applies to all Shakespeare?
I think so. I think that was the method that they did it. Yeah. I mean, Paul, I think maybe it's why I love it so much. Not that maybe that's why I feel, and I've always said this and I say it all the time, but I feel like there's room for me in these plays. And what do I mean by that is, like, sometimes modern plays are so airtight. They just want you to kind of paint by numbers. Like, do this, and do this, and tell my story. Okay, cool. I can do that as an actor. But I get a piece of Shakespeare, and I feel like it's asking my opinion. It's asking me what I want and how I can fit into it. And I think that comes from the way they were written and the way they were done, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
It's done since. Excuse me.
So let's see. So again, great job reading that speech. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Would you just read the rest of the play for us? Thanks,
Okay,
Paul.
sure. I'll begin. No. I'm okay to trouble them up.
So he goes on this thing about Julius Caesar, which is cut, and then let's go to Enter Ghost.
Okay.
But soft, behold, lo, where it comes again.
Again, the word again is a key word.
Ooh, yes.
You know, it's sort of like, it's like a great, it almost acts as a punctuation of sorts, you know, even without the exclamation point.
Right.
The comes has no meaning unless it has again with it.
Again. Yes, that's a really great point. Here's a stage direction that I am ashamed to admit I've never noticed before, and I'm checking my Neil. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that means. It spreads his arm. It's a contradiction of sorts. Because what is the ghost spreading Horatio's arms? You know, is you know, it spreads his arms. It makes no sense. It's a very odd. I did a quadruple take when I saw it.
Is it a quarto thing? Hold on, I'm gonna check my side by side here and check where it is. Resolutes, but soft, low it comes again. Okay, I don't. So it must be a quarto. Yeah, it spreads his arms as a quarto thing. So one thing we know about the quarto, or the one thing that I've heard and I believe about the quarto, sometimes had stage directions that were written in by the stage director, basically. The stage director notes were kind of what they based the quartos on. So it has some of those extra information, like it spreads his arms, or, you know, whatever kind of direction of what the actor was doing at the time, whereas the folio is basically just kind of the printed text. So for some reason, the actor playing the ghost was spreading his arms, and I don't know what that is.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that is. Could be a lot of things. Could be, I'm not sure, but let it be known, it is not in the folio. So if you don't want to spread your arms, you are backed up by the folio.
Yes. Yeah, because it just seems random, unless it indicate that it stops from its wandering around. It spreads his arms. Unless he spread his arms and wandering around, it looks just kind of silly, if you ask me. You know, he's not Peggy Fleming. You know, unless you're trying to predict the arrival of Peggy Fleming, it's possible. Strange thing about Shakespeare.
So what approach? So Horatio takes the approach now of asking more direct. He doesn't just yell, speak. Now he's asking direct questions. And he says, look, I'll cross it though it blasphemy. Some people think that's making the sign of a cross. Later on, they use the end of the sword hilt as the cross. I think maybe cross means getting in its path. I think that makes more sense to me because they don't have a cross at the moment. Stay illusion. Now it's an illusion. Again, a different name for it. We're naming it all. We're trying to figure it out. So the questions he asks, first of all, if you can make a sound, make a sound. And then he says, if there's anything that I can help you with, or you can help me with, let me know. And then he says,
that's one thing. Like, if I can help you in any way, Ghosty, anything I can do for you. I mean, I don't know what I can do for a ghost. If you want me to pick up supplies, I mean, I don't know what. It's an odd. Horatio's weird. He's a strange man. There's no doubt about that.
Strange fella. I will point out later. He says, a countenance more in sorrow than in anger. Which, as you and I have seen, it's one of my pet peeves. These ghosts come on and they look angry as hell.
Yeah.
I would point to the Mel Gibson Hamlet, and Paul Scofield as the ghost is beautiful. That is a countenance more in sorrow than in anger. So maybe we see the sorrow and he's like, may to thee do ease and grace to me, speak to me. Great. Or my favorite, and then he says, if something bad's going to happen to our country and and we can avoid it, let us know. And then my favorite is this: if you buried some treasure and you come back to find it.
Horatio, I'm telling you, we don't know Horatio. Horatio has got a lot of stuff going on there. Okay, I think in the past life, he was a very shady character. He was well-learned, smart as hell, but he also, he was a businessman, some stuff going on, like, well, maybe we can make some money, you and I, Ghosty. Maybe we have some treasure or something out. What's going on? Oh, and maybe save my country. Okay, fine. If that is part of the deal, great. I think at this point, Horatio himself has gone mad. He's lost his mind.
Mad.
That I call it for a divine true man. Anyway,
extorted treasure in the womb of earth, for which they say your spirits off walk in death. Speak. Yeah, it's like if you buried a treasure, because I've heard ghosts come back to get that treasure they buried. Yes. Tell me.
Where did you hear that? I want to know. Where did Horatio hear that?
It would be great if the ghost just had a one-word line right there and just looked at Horatio and said, "What?
Yeah, exactly.
What?
What are you talking? I'm going to go, but mainly because of that. I had some stuff I was going to tell you. Oh, and yeah, maybe some treasure, but no, I'm gone. 2 on the nose.
Forget it. Yeah, great.
But again, I'm going to argue this Horatio. I mean, Horatio's life has changed dramatically. And then when he sees the ghost, he's like, okay, he's speaking from that madness. He's like, I heard the treasure with ghosts, and is it they can do for you? Because I have no purpose in life. I don't know why I'm here on this earth now. I mean, he should be, Horatio should read To Be or Not to Be, because that's what To Be or Not to Be should be read by Horatio. I think Shakespeare completely messed this up entirely.
Yeah.
When you look at Hamlet, really, it's a mistake. It's an entire.
I think when it comes to questions you should ask a ghost, like Horatio is really scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
He's not even in the top 1,000 in terms of questions you should ask a ghost.
Okay, and then I think Horatio makes another mistake here. So Marcella says, shall I strike at it with my partisan? Horatio's answer, instead of immediately going, no, you can't kill a dead guy. Like, you're not going to strike a ghost. Like, stop, Marcellus. Horatio says, yeah, if it won't stand still while it's running away, get it.
Yes, he's an idiot. Horatio, his intelligence drops by 95%. He's like, yeah, kill it. I don't know. It won't give me the treasure, so what good is it? Horatio, again.
Wow. No
it
idea.
Makes me wonder, what kind of friendship did he and Hamlet really have?
Oh, that's so funny.
He was a trusted, valuable man, but I think that's just one side of him. I think that's what.
That's so funny. He was very affected by this,
and then Marcellus who has the wisdom.
That's right.
Says.
Yeah. So first it goes a great 3. We're gonna, I'm gonna point out all the 3s here. For instance, I asked earlier, why doesn't Francisco have a bodyguard? You know why? Marcellus and Bernardo and Horatio? Because it just works better in threes. It just does.
Yes.
Threes are great. Shakespeare knew that. He doesn't care if like that's not what he set up. He didn't set up 2 by 2. No, he's like, I need 3 guys for this scene and it'll be fantastic. And he's right. And you get a moment like 'tis here, 'tis gone. Fantastic, right? Bang, bang, bang. And then you're right. Marcellus' wisdom is what?
All of a sudden, Marcellus, who claims to be not learned, and like, we need Horatio because I know nothing. All of a sudden, he has this wisdom, like, 'tis gone, we do it wrong, being so majestical to offer it the show of violence, for it is as the air, invulnerable, and our vain blows malicious mockery. That's right, Marcellus.
Yeah.
What the hell? It's
right.
like, so basically, Hamlet is really about Marcellus's insecurity because he's actually smart as hell. And
He is.
how is it Horatio, Mr. Learned Man, did not know that? Why?
Yeah,
is
right.
it-
He was shook. Horatio is shook.
And
You know what I mean? Yeah.
he is shook to the point where logic has gone bye-bye, and it takes freaking Marcellus, who has no education at all, being like, the hell, why are we being all violent and stuff? It's like, of the
Yeah.
air. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. How do we think we want it to talk? So we're going to swing at it with a sword and that's going to make him calm down?
And it's a
You
ghost.
idiot.
Yeah, good luck with
There
that.
it goes. So Bernardo points out it was about to speak when the cock crew. How do we know? That's just, his feeling that maybe it was going to say something. We don't know, but that's what he's telling the audience. That's what he's telling us.
You point out, it could be another case of Shakespearean exposition. Maybe the ghost is about to, leaning forward.
Yeah.
But then what would he have said? Like, be gone, you fools. You know nothing.
Yeah. You can't strike me with a partisan.
What is wrong with you? Bring me an heiress. Is there an heiress available? I want one now. I
Yes.
want that play, the alternative Hamlet. What would the ghost have said?
Yeah, so then Horatio goes on about erring in the spirit and times and confining the truth. Here in this present object made probation. Okay, great. So, and then it started like a guilty thing upon a fearful summons. I love that fearful summons because we get the feeling later he's in purgatory. So he was about to speak, but the cock crew, which means the sun is coming up, which is one of my favorite lines in the play later, where he says, "Gins to pale his ineffectual fire." The what he says before he has to go after his meeting with Hamlet. So when the sun comes up, the cock is crowing. Ghosts can't hang out. Ghosts can only roam at night. And then during the day, they fast and fires. What he'll say later, they have to go back to purgatory. Yes. So it was the cock crowing, the sun coming up. So now the sun is coming up. What is it? 6 a.m. And earlier it was midnight.
Right. I know. All of a sudden, 5 hours have passed. It's also to note that Marcellus doubled down on that and says, hey, when our Savior's birth is celebrated, that's bird of dawning singeth all night long. So it's like that. Just to let you know, everybody, there's also a time where ghosts can't hang.
That's right. Because at Christmas time, it's supposed to be joyous and they crow. So none of that. And then I love and Horatio says, so have I heard and do in part believe it. Thanks for being so non-committal there.
Yeah, well, at this point,
Horatio.
he's reduced to idiot level. But look, the morning russet mantle clad walks over the
Beautiful line, right?
The morn in russet mantle clad walks over the dew of yon high eastward hill. Break we up our march, and by my advice, which is worthless at this point, let us impart what we have seen tonight unto young Hamlet thanks for letting us know. Another exposition. He has to say young Hamlet because if he says Hamlet, they think, well, the dead king? What the hell? Didn't we just see him?
That's exactly right. So all of a sudden, young Hamlet, you go, oh, okay. Yes. So this play is about the prince of the guy who just died, the son of the guy who just died. Yeah.
And I think in the Bear Quarter, he goes, young Hamlet, and he turns, and I think the stage direction is turn to audience and winking. Young Hamlet. That's how it really was intended. Upon my life, this spirit dumb to us will speak to him. Really? Based on, I guess, why? Because you tried to kill it, and Hamlet wouldn't dare to do it because Hamlet's smarter than you? You consent, we shall acquaint him with it as needful in our loves, fitting our duty. Well, hey, Horatio, thanks for saying hello to Hamlet earlier, since you were hiding from him. What now?
That's right.
Now you got some crazy news. Now you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm around. I forgot to tell you. Horatio is a bit of a
Okay.
bastard. I'm just gonna say it. He is a rat bastard. We have read Horatio wrong for too many years.
We have. And then, of course, I love, so Horatio, the learned, intelligent man, says, I think the ghost is here to talk to his son. Let's go let him know. But what we just learned is that Marcellus is smarter, so he has to go, do you agree, Marcellus? And
Yes.
Marcellus goes, yeah, I agree. We're good with that.
Yeah. See, I'm the smart one. Let's do it. I pray this morning. Know where we should find. Yeah, because he's like, not only know that's right, but I know where we can find Hamlet. You know, it's like I know more than you realize. I am smart. This play should be about my intelligence and my insecurity being conquered. There's a lot happening here, and we're only in scene one.
Scene one. Hey, let me point out this. How many times have we seen, and I may have been guilty of this too, that this Act 1, Scene 2, the first time we see the king and the queen and everything, that it's a big celebration and people are having drinks and it's like maybe after the wedding and it's all lovely and it's like a party in the evening. Well, I just realized they're going to go right now, this morning, 6 a.m., the cock crew. He goes, I know where to find him right now this morning. This scene 2 should be taking place in the morning, not in the celebratory night drinking champagne party.
Unless, I mean, they were up all night and pretty knackered. You know, we got to. I say some slumber might be in best haste for the time being.
Right. Well, and then what we find out later when Hamlet goes to visit the guys on the battlements, that's when they're having the party. Remember, they hear the noise, and he says it's more honored in the breach than in the observance. That's the party. This morning is business. But so many people think, oh, let's have champagne and let's have a big party and let's all be dancing. No, this is like 7 o'clock. This is a business meeting in the morning going on here. And that line before totally informs that. And I think it makes a lot of sense. So they decide to go. So now we know there is a dead King Hamlet. There is a young Hamlet. And now they've decided to go find him and tell him.
Find him and tell him. The line you like, I just want to unpack a little bit. But look, the morn in russet mantle clad walks over the dew of yon high eastward hill. Tell me about that line.
Well, first of all, I love it when you could have just said sun's coming up.
Yeah.
But it's the description of the russet mantle care. Let me get my eyes on it. The morn in russet. So russet mantle like a cloak or a blanket, right? The russet is that color when it comes up, and it's clad. So the morning is now clad, is now covered in this beautiful russet color, right? Walks o'er the dew of yon high eastward hill, right? The sun rising in the east. It's just so poetic and beautiful. And it comes out of a dumbstruck Horatio.
Yes, an idiotic Horatio. So Horatio is probably the most complicated character. He's what Hamlet wishes he would be. Horatio. He's poetic. He's a cad. He's a doubting Thomas. As we read on Hamlet, we're gonna be unpacking.
Keep an eye.
Yeah, keep a watch. As it were.
We're gonna keep. I want Horatio's version of this. We need like a Horatio's a play where it's Horatio's intermonologue.
Yes.
About how he's like at this point he's like, say something smart, Horatio. Say something smart. The sun's coming up. What do I say?
Oh,
yeah.
I said this to some broad once. In 6th grade. Hey, look at the rest of the.
You know what I like? You know how I like sometimes there's opportunities in line endings to kind of suspend a little bit.
Yes.
I think there's a good opportunity for me, it's like line 174. It's around there. It's right after the Jew of yon eastward hill, break we our watch up, and by my advice, let us impart what we have seen tonight. It kind of sets up, it catches the audience's ear to, who are we going to go tell? And then he says, unto young Hamlet. Like it sets up the importance. Yes, right. So that's, for me, it's about 180 lines in the Arden, Act 1, Scene 1. And and how kind of this play gets started with a lot of questions, a lot of things happening, a lot of fear. It's a great start. It's a great start.
Yeah, it's nothing but tension, suspense, wonder, confusion, a little skullduggery, thanks to Horatio. Um, and, and Marcellus coming into his own saying, hey, I ain't so dumb, turns out. It's really, it's Marcellus. That's another, this first scene alone could branch out. If this was all in the family, we'd have a Maud, we'd have a, we'd have a Rhoda, we'd have a Phyllis. We've got
you really do.
Kind of offshoots here, just based on
that's
that.
Great. Well, and the that great, it's the great kind of writer's tool and technique of converting the skeptic, which you see all the time now. Someone shows up and goes, no, but the audience doesn't buy into it until the skeptic is converted, right? It's right at the top. We have that. So now we're totally in. But what I love about it is that we will continue to question. Hamlet will continue to question if it really was a ghost, could be the devil, and if what the ghost tells Hamlet is real or not. He's constantly questioning this. And I think they set that up well, not knowing. Did they call it a ghost? Did they actually call it a ghost in this?
The word
I don't think
ghost,
they did.
I don't think they did.
I think it's only in the stage direction.
Right. They themselves never use the word ghost. It's,
No, they use thing, apparition,
portentous figure, which is, again, why never call it a ghost? Deliberate for sure, but why?
Yeah, I think it's good that we don't know. It leaves it open-ended, that we don't know what this thing is, that we don't know if it's even Hamlet, when he sees it coming up, he runs through a bunch of different names trying to figure out what it will respond to.
This is maybe idiotic, but it is me. What's the ghost's story? So, like, he's in purgatory and he's like, pot's brewing. Looks like Fortinbras coming out. I don't know, it's been a while, but I think maybe it's time to let my son know that I was murdered by my brother. I mean,
right. And also the ghost comes back not to say, hey, Fortinbras is going to attack you guys. You got to do something about it. He comes back and says, forget all that. I want you to avenge me. Yes. And like I've said before, there's no evidence that King Hamlet is a great king or a great father. Matter of fact, there's evidence to the contrary. For one, the nicest thing he says to Hamlet is, I find thee apt, right? No one besides Hamlet in the play says anything nice about it. Never once does Gertrude say, oh, how I miss your father. Oh, how he held. Like, no one says, like, oh, he was such a great king. So he comes back and it's just like, hey, do this thing for me, kid.
Yeah, which it's the ghost identifies himself as the spirit of his demised father, right? So it begs the question: is it the spirit has a different personality, or is the ghost has the exact same personality as his late father? He looks like him, or
he's just not physical. Yeah,
it's not right. It makes me wonder. It has the physical impression of his father, but he's not his father. It makes me think, well, what's the ghost hiding? Maybe it is the devil. Maybe it is not the ghost, because, why put all on that armor and looking like the father? Because take that armor off and it's like, who is this spirit? I don't know. Maybe the winds. Maybe it's just my mind talking.
That's true.
It's a lot of questions, and makes me think, right. The impression could be like, hey, he's the only indication that he was a great king is that he defeated Fortinbras. He did do that. He
was a great warrior.
Yes.
You're right. That is true. That is true. I love the fact that if you're seeing this play for the very first time in 1603, 180 lines in, it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of questions, and it's pretty exciting.
And right, I mean, it's of all of Shakespeare's plays, I would argue, what has more excitement and like questions and mystery and enigma than Hamlet? Name another play that begins Act 1, Scene 1 just like that. I can't.
I think that's
my head. I'm thinking, two households, both lack of dignity. It's great. You're setting up. You're telling people there's a conflict here. you're inferring conflicts, but you're also experiencing one right on the stage, right in front of you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
you watch. You know, Mercutio dies not on scene. He doesn't die on scene one, act one. You know,
Right.
you
Right.
have that type of absolutely like detonation points right at the beginning of the play. It
Yeah.
explodes
Yeah.
right from the beginning, which is why, and given its length, it's certainly not the case with Lear. Lear doesn't explode in the beginning.
Right.
You know, a king waxing philosophical, and but it's not sort of like an inciting incident. We don't know why
Right.
Lear or when Lear went mad and when his judgment went south. We're told of it, but here we have the ground zero, the atom bomb that launches the play. You take the ghost away, well, you've got just Hamlet just hanging out, talking, flirting with Ophelia, and then like, hey, Fortinbras is coming. Oh yeah, we'll probably arm that, but otherwise they're just hanging out. Claudius says,
Right.
"What's up?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't like you, Uncle. Man, feelings mutual. It's fine." I would like to see that Hamlet, by the way. And
Yeah, I'm not sure how long
finally caught and put in prison for the scoundrel that is. There's nothing.
So one last thing before we go, it's going to be interesting to track throughout what are the rules for the ghost. In other words, how many people can see him? Where is he allowed to go? Who does he speak to? Because right now we don't quite know what the rules are. We know now that 3 people have seen him and he looked like he was going to talk, but then when the sun comes up, he has to go. He's going to start showing up, doing a little more each time. So we'll keep an eye on what are the rules for what kind of ghost is this.
Well, yes, absolutely. Because right now the rules are Francisco doesn't get to see him, but he widely sensed that Marcellus had a brain and showed up a couple of times. And then when Marcellus wasn't looking at the goods, he said, "Okay, you know, I'll bring Horatio." He's like, "Oh, Horatio, okay, I don't trust him at all, but he's got some brains, so let's." You know, he appears very specifically, and the ghost, curiously enough, you know, granted that it's coming to that time where the crow is going to crow, the cock is going to crow, but he could have spoken any beat before then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he chose the worst.
Something, you know.
Yeah, he chose the worst possible time. He chose the time where the time jumped 6 hours.
Yes.
Hey, I would like to. Oh,
Yeah. Where did the 6 hours go? It's like what?
Time flies when you're being silent.
Yes. It's like, and you know, of course, Horatio with his idiot, attack him. Like, what? Come on, really?
I love it.
You were educated where? Germany? Well, that explains a few things.
Yeah, attack.
Yes.
So not only a good start to Hamlet, but a good start to our 20, probably 20 plus episodes of our Hamlet discussion.
Yes. And when you edit this, I would say change my hair, change the background, change.
Okay.
And in fact, dress me like maybe the ghost. Put me in some sort of armor.
Okay. Sure will.
You'll be wondering why.
I'll hire someone just to completely animate your side of, of
that would work as well, because I'm an animated character of sorts. But yes, I think this is a great start, a great sort of, you know, already I feel the passion of both of us for the material, and I am already making discoveries. That before, even to the most ridiculous extent. That's what the beauty of this. How many times have we looked at Hamlet and read Hamlet and seen Hamlet on stage, on film, you know, in a terrible miniseries, a terrible sitcom, you know, and yet now we're saying, hey, Horatio's treachery for the first time, you know, among other things, the curious lines, a piece of me, the arm spread, you know, for reasons unknown. In that you see yourself in the play. I love what the play does to us, in particular, in addition to what it does to those who really, thankfully, open themselves up to it.
Right.
And you know, it helps. You know, we are biased because we have seen it on stage a number of times and seen numerous television and films of it, and we have a history.
Well, and we've put the shoes on. Both of us have been on stage living inside this play, and I think that makes a huge difference. I know I'm biased, but I just think when you're discussing this play, unless you've really put the shoes on anywhere in the play, some character you've been involved in the rehearsals and trying to figure it out as real human beings, I think you can't fully discuss it.
Yes, no, I agree. It again, I've discussed with you previously about the actors and whatever, the media, people who are more than willing to put up a barrier between themselves and Shakespeare and the language, when of course the language is English.
I
And
know.
and the thoughts and the expressions and the actions are all very human, that are universal and what we all can relate to. And I think that's the pity of the fact that Shakespeare is kind of a niche sort of experience as opposed to a universal one where all can enjoy.
Right. Well, on that note, my friend, thank you. It's a good start.
Thank you.